Aries, stop for a moment. Just stop. If you're here right now, not scrolling, not rushing, but actually listening. I want to ask you something. What if this isn't random at all? What if this moment found you? Because something in your life is already shifting. Aries, you've carried a lot. Too much for too long. And somewhere between surviving and staying strong, you forgot what peace feels like. But here's the quiet truth no one warned you about. 2026 doesn't come to fix your past. It comes to flip everything. Softly, deliberately, in your favor. So take a breath. Trust your instinct. And if this resonates, let me know in the comments. Because what's coming next might explain why you're here right now. And if you're still here with me, I want you to stay right there for a moment. Not anywhere else. Just here. Because I know something about you, Aries. You don't slow down easily. You're built for movement, for action, for fire. So if you've paused long enough to listen to this, that already tells me something inside you is asking for rest. Not sleep. Rest. You've been carrying weight that no one ever saw. Responsibilities that quietly stacked up. Expectations that weren't even yours to begin with. And you told yourself it was fine. You always do. But some nights, when everything finally went quiet, you felt it. That strange heaviness in your chest. That sense that life kept moving, but you were holding your breath just trying to keep up. You didn't fail, Aries. You endured. And endurance changes a person. It sharpens you. But it also hardens you if you're not careful. That's why this moment matters. Not because something dramatic is about to explode, but because something subtle is finally softening. You're stepping out of survival mode. And I know that sounds simple, but it's not. Survival mode rewires the soul. It teaches you to scan every room, to brace for impact, to expect disappointment before hope. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop imagining a future that feels light. Here's the quiet truth I want to share with you. The shift ahead isn't loud. It doesn't rush you. It waits until you're ready to stop fighting it. That's what 2026 feels like for you. Not a battle, a release. You're not being asked to prove anything anymore. Not to your past. Not to anyone who doubted you. Not even to yourself. There's a different kind of strength coming now. The kind that doesn't raise its voice. The kind that knows when to walk away. The kind that chooses peace without explaining why. You may already feel it. In the way you've grown tired of certain conversations. In how some places no longer feel like home. In the way your intuition has gotten louder, even when you try to ignore it. That's not confusion. That's alignment beginning to speak, and I want you to trust it. Not blindly, but gently. Because what's unfolding next isn't about fixing what broke. It's about realizing you're allowed to build something new, something calmer, something that doesn't cost you your nervous system. If this is resonating, you don't need to rush ahead. Just stay present with me. There's a deeper layer opening now, one that speaks through quiet signs, through dreams, through moments that feel oddly meaningful for no clear reason. And that's where this story really begins. Aries. Let me sit with you here for a moment. Just you and me. No audience. No expectations. 2025 didn't break you, but it took things from you quietly. Little by little. Until one day you looked up and realized you were tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. You kept going anyway. You always do. You showed up when you had nothing left to give. You stayed strong because someone had to be. And even when your heart felt empty, you still found ways to make others feel okay. That's not weakness. That's endurance. But endurance has a cost. And no one really talks about that part. There were moments you felt disconnected from yourself. Like you were moving through life on instinct, not intention. doing what needed to be done without ever stopping to ask if it was still right for you. And yes, you noticed others moving ahead, celebrating, building, living out loud. You wondered quietly when it would finally be your turn, not in jealousy, but in exhaustion. Here's what I want you to hear, Aries, and I need you to hear it slowly. You were not delayed. You were being shaped. Some people grow through expansion. Others grow through pressure. You grew through pressure. Every disappointment refined your boundaries. Every loss taught you discernment. Every lonely stretch trained you to listen inward instead of chasing noise outside of you. That kind of preparation doesn't look impressive from the outside, but it builds something solid on the inside. And that matters now. Because the next chapter of your life doesn't respond to force. It responds to clarity, to self-respect, to the quiet confidence that says, I know what I'm worth now. You're beginning to feel it, even if you can't explain it yet. A subtle shift in what you tolerate, a deeper awareness of what drains you, a growing discomfort with living on autopilot. That's not restlessness. That's readiness. You're no longer meant to survive your days. You're meant to inhabit them. And the strange thing is, the more you release the need to prove yourself, the more life begins to meet you halfway. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily. Like the first light before sunrise. Easy to miss if you're not paying attention. That's why this moment matters. Because what comes next isn't about rushing forward. It's about recognizing the signals that have already started to appear. The quiet nudges. The subtle pull towards stillness. The moments where your intuition speaks louder than your fear. And if you stay present, if you let yourself soften instead of harden, you'll notice something unexpected beginning to guide you. Not from outside of you, but from within. And that's where the story deepens. Aries, there's something you're starting to realize now. Not all at once, not with fireworks, but in small, honest moments when you finally stop pushing. You've spent a long time fighting the current, trying to make things work, trying to hold people together, trying to force answers out of situations that stayed silent. And at some point, you felt it in your body, that tightness, that exhaustion that no amount of motivation could override. That was your signal. Not that you were weak, but that it was time to loosen your grip. There's a quiet power in release that most people misunderstand. They think letting go means giving up. But you and I both know that's not true. Letting go is when you stop arguing with reality. It's when you stop chasing peace in places that only taught you how to survive. It's when you decide you don't need to bleed to earn your place anymore. You didn't come this far to keep repeating the same lesson. You came this far to recognize when the lesson was complete. And that's why things begin to shift the moment you stop resisting. Not because you suddenly try harder, but because you finally stop standing in your own way. What isn't meant to walk with you into the next chapter feels that change. It loosens. It fades. Sometimes without drama. Sometimes without closure. And that's okay. What is meant for you never needs to be chased. It doesn't hide. It doesn't test your worth. It meets you when your hands are open, not clenched. That's how divine timing works. It doesn't respond to force. It responds to alignment. 2026 carries that kind of energy for you. Gentle, precise, unrushed. You may notice it first in what no longer pulls at you. Conversations that suddenly feel empty. Old fears that don't hit as hard. Patterns you once defended that now feel unnecessary. That's not loss. That's clarity. You're learning to trust that what's truly yours cannot miss you, even if it takes a different route, even if it arrives later than you expected. And something else happens when you stop fighting. Your intuition gets louder. You begin to sense timing instead of forcing outcomes. You start to feel when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when silence does more for you. This isn't passivity. It's wisdom earned through experience. You've already lived the version of life where everything had to be hard. You don't need to repeat that. There is a softer rhythm calling you now, one that doesn't demand constant effort, one that doesn't confuse chaos with passion. And as you settle into that rhythm, you may notice signs showing up in quieter ways, through subtle nudges, through moments that feel strangely timed, through inner knowing that doesn't need proof. That's when you'll understand. The shift was never outside of you. It was waiting for you to stop resisting it. And as that understanding settles in, a deeper awareness begins to rise. One that speaks in images, feelings, and messages you don't hear with your ears. Just stay with me. We're moving into that space now. Aries, there's a quiet moment that happens before real change. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask for permission. You just wake up one day and realize you don't feel the same inside anymore. Not angry, not dramatic, just different. You don't explain yourself as much. You don't overextend to keep the peace. You don't shrink to fit rooms that were never built for you. And you notice it in small ways first. The way certain opinions no longer sting. The way silence feels safer than forcing conversation. The way your body relaxes when you finally choose yourself. That's the awakening. Not loud, but unmistakable. You spent years thinking strength meant endurance, holding on, pushing through, proving you could take more. But now, something older and wiser is stirring in you. A version of Aries that understands real power doesn't need to be validated. You're learning that peace is not something you earn by sacrificing yourself. It's something you protect by being honest about what you can no longer carry. And when you say no, now, it doesn't come from anger. It comes from clarity. That's growth. You're no longer trying to be understood by everyone. You're no longer measuring your worth by who approves. You're no longer afraid that choosing yourself will cost you love. Because deep down, you've already felt what happens when you abandon yourself. And you're not going back there. This new version of you moves differently. Slower. More intentional. Less reactive. You pause before responding. You listen to your body. You sense when something feels off, even if it looks fine on the surface. That's intuition reclaiming its place. And 2026 meets you exactly here. Not asking you to become someone else, but inviting you to fully inhabit who you already are. You may feel moments of doubt. That's normal. Growth always unsettles old identities. But notice this. Even when uncertainty appears, you don't panic like you used to. You trust yourself more now. You trust that you'll handle whatever comes without betraying your values. That trust changes everything. You're no longer chasing direction. You're aligning with it. And as you do, life begins to respond differently. Not immediately, but consistently. Opportunities feel lighter. Connections feel more honest. And what drains you reveals itself quickly, so you don't stay too long. This isn't isolation, it's discernment. You're stepping into a season where your energy becomes sacred again, where your time matters, where your inner world finally gets the care you've given everyone else. And there's more unfolding beneath the surface now. Something subtle, something that doesn't speak through logic, but through feeling. You may notice it when you rest, when you dream, when your mind quiets enough to let deeper messages rise. That's where the next layer waits. Not in effort, not in force. Just stay present. We're moving there. Together. Aries, there's something about you that people don't always see. They notice your strength, your fire, your ability to move forward when others hesitate. But what they miss is how deeply you feel everything beneath the surface. You don't just sense life, you absorb it. And lately, you may have noticed that your inner world has been getting louder. Not chaotic, just clearer. It often begins at night. In those moments when the world finally releases its grip and your mind drifts into quieter spaces. Your dreams have weight now, not dramatic, but meaningful. You wake up with images that linger, feelings that stay with you longer than they should, a sense that something was said even if no words were spoken. That's not imagination, that's communication. You've always had this sensitivity, Aries, but survival kept it muted. Noise drowned it out. Urgency demanded your attention elsewhere. Now that you've softened your grip on the world, your intuition has room to breathe again. You may notice how certain thoughts arrive fully formed. Not as worry, but as knowing. A quiet pull away from something that looks fine on the outside. A sudden calm about a decision you haven't explained to anyone yet. A feeling that tells you to wait even when your instincts used to rush you forward. That's growth speaking through intuition. Your dreams aren't random scenes playing in your sleep. They're reflections of truths you're ready to face. Warnings wrapped in symbolism. Reassurance disguised as memory. Guidance delivered gently, so it doesn't overwhelm you. Sometimes they come to protect you. Sometimes to redirect you. Sometimes simply to remind you that you're not walking this path alone. You don't need to analyze every detail. You don't need to force meaning. Just notice how you feel when you wake up. Calmer, heavier, more resolved. That feeling is the message. You're entering a phase where listening matters more than reacting, where silence becomes informative, where your inner signals deserve as much respect as any external advice you've ever followed. This doesn't mean you stop being decisive. It means your decisions are now rooted in alignment instead of urgency. And as you honor that inner guidance, you may notice how life responds with less resistance. Things fall into place without struggle. Answers arrive without pursuit. And what once felt confusing begins to feel inevitable. This is a spiritual upgrade. Not mystical, but grounded. A return to trusting yourself in ways you were taught to ignore. You're not being asked to slow down forever, only to listen long enough to move in the right direction. Because there's another layer unfolding now. One that brings clarity into the physical world, into stability, into tangible relief. The kind that changes how you breathe when you think about tomorrow. And as your inner vision sharpens, the outer world begins to shift in response. Stay with me here. What comes next touches something very real. Aries, let's talk about something you've been quietly holding your breath around. Money, stability, that constant low hum of concern that never fully left the room. You may not talk about it much. You've learned how to manage, how to adapt, how to make things work, even when they shouldn't. But there were moments when it felt like no matter how strong you stayed, life kept asking for more patience than felt fair. You worried in silence, late at night, early in the morning, wondering how long you could keep carrying everything without something giving way. And you did it with dignity, without asking for pity, without letting the world see how heavy it really was. That's why what comes next feels different. Not loud, not flashy, but deeply relieving. 2026 brings a shift in how supported you feel by life itself. A loosening in the chest. A sense that the ground beneath you is finally steady enough to stand on without bracing. This isn't sudden wealth that turns your world upside down. It's something better. It's the kind of abundance that lets you breathe again. You may notice it arrive quietly, through an opportunity that feels almost perfectly timed, through a decision that suddenly works out without resistance, through something owed to you in one form or another, finally finding its way back. And when it does, it won't just change numbers. It will change your nervous system. You'll feel it in the way your shoulders drop, in how your sleep deepens, in the way tomorrow no longer feels like a question mark you're afraid to look at. This is not about excess. It's about ease. The ease of knowing you have options. The ease of choosing what aligns instead of what merely pays the bills. The ease of not having to prove your worth through constant effort. You've paid enough dues, Aries, in ways no balance sheet could ever reflect. And this next phase isn't a reward for suffering. It's a correction. A reminder that life isn't meant to be lived in constant survival mode. That stability is not a luxury. It's a foundation. You may even find yourself emotional when things begin to settle. Not because of the money itself, but because of what it represents. Safety, dignity, the freedom to choose peace without calculating the cost. This is abundance that respects you, that meets you where you are now, more aware, more grounded, more honest with yourself than you've ever been. And as this support begins to show up in tangible ways, something else shifts alongside it. Your relationship with home, with rest, with the places where you let your guard down. You start to imagine a life that doesn't just function, but actually feels good to come back to. And that's where the next layer opens. Not in what you earn, but in where you belong. Just stay here with me. We're getting close to something deeply personal now. Aries, I want you to picture something simple, not grand, not perfect, just you unlocking the door at the end of a long day. And for the first time in a while, your body doesn't brace for impact. No tension in your shoulders. No tightness in your chest. No quiet dread waiting on the other side. Home begins to feel different now. Not because the walls changed, but because you did. There was a time when home felt like another battlefield. A place filled with noise you couldn't escape. Expectations you carried even when you were exhausted. Silences that felt heavier than words. You learned how to survive that. You adapted. You stayed alert. You kept parts of yourself guarded, even when you needed rest the most. But something softened in you this past year. You stopped negotiating your peace. You stopped explaining why certain behaviors hurt. You stopped accepting discomfort as the price of belonging. And quietly, the energy shifted. Now, when you think of home, it doesn't feel like a place you endure. It feels like a place you return to. A space where your nervous system can finally exhale, where your thoughts slow down enough to hear themselves, where you don't have to perform strength just to feel safe. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. You changed first. You chose calm over chaos, honesty over avoidance, self-respect over old patterns that no longer fit. And because of that, reconciliation finds its way in. Not always through big conversations. Sometimes through quiet understanding. Sometimes through distance that creates clarity. Sometimes through forgiveness that doesn't need to be announced. Peace returns in layers. You may notice it in how conflict no longer pulls you in how your reactions soften, in how you stop replaying old arguments in your head. Stability becomes less about control and more about trust. Trust that you can protect your inner world now. Trust that you don't need to harden yourself to feel secure. Trust that love does not have to come with conditions. Home becomes sacred again because it reflects the way you treat yourself. You allow rest. You allow quiet. You allow yourself to be human. And in that gentler space, something else begins to happen. Joy starts to feel safe again. Not the loud kind, the steady kind. The kind that lives in small rituals and familiar comforts, in shared meals, in moments of stillness that feel earned. This is where you begin to feel rooted, not stuck. Rooted, anchored in a life that supports you instead of asking you to constantly hold it together. And as that foundation settles, as your sense of belonging strengthens, your heart begins to open in a new way, not out of need, but out of wholeness. Because when home feels safe, the future feels less intimidating. And that's when the story prepares to turn one last time toward meaning, toward purpose, toward the quiet understanding of what all of this was leading you toward. Stay with me. We're almost there. Aries, take a moment here, not to think, just to feel. After everything you've walked through, after all the strength you were forced to grow into, there's a realization settling gently now. Life isn't asking you to brace yourself anymore. 2026 doesn't arrive with noise. It doesn't shake the ground beneath your feet. It doesn't demand that you become someone new overnight. It arrives like a calm voice in the background, saying, "You've done enough. You've carried enough. You've proven enough. There is nothing left for you to fight." What's changing your life now isn't intensity. It's relief. The kind that comes when your body finally understands it, no longer has to stay tense to survive. The kind that allows you to imagine a future without immediately calculating what it might cost you. This is a turning point, Aries. Not because everything flips dramatically, but because everything softens. You begin to move through your days with less resistance. You choose what nourishes you. You let go of what drains you without guilt, without explanation. You stop waiting for permission to rest. You stop questioning whether peace is deserved. You stop mistaking struggle for purpose. And something beautiful happens in that space. Your life starts responding to who you are now, not who you were forced to be. Opportunities feel aligned instead of exhausting. Connections feel mutual instead of demanding. Your energy begins to return to you in ways that feel natural, not earned through sacrifice. This is not the end of a story. It's the release of an old one. The version of you that survived everything doesn't disappear. It steps back, allowing a gentler version to take the lead. A version that knows strength can be quiet. That dignity doesn't require endurance. That love doesn't ask you to abandon yourself. If this moment feels emotional, let it be. That's not sadness. That's recognition. You're recognizing yourself again. And when you're ready, not rushed, not pressured, just ready, say it softly to yourself. I receive this with gratitude and trust, not as a promise, not as a demand, but as an opening. Because Aries, 2026 isn't here to undo you. It isn't here to overwhelm you. It isn't here to test how much more you can handle. It's here to give something back. Space, stability, a sense of belonging in your own life. And as you move forward from here, carry this knowing with you. Nothing that truly belongs to you will require you to suffer for it. You are not being broken open. You are being set free. Stay with that feeling. Let it guide you. You're exactly where you need to be now. Aries. Before you go, let me leave you with this. If you stayed until now, it's not because you were curious. It's because something in you already knew. Knew that this year isn't here to test you. Knew that the weight you've been carrying was never meant to be permanent. Knew that the shift you feel is real. 2026 isn't loud. It doesn't rush you, but it changes everything the moment you stop doubting yourself. So if this message touched you, if it mirrored something you've been feeling but couldn't put into words, leave a comment below and let me know. Not for me, for you. Because speaking your truth out loud is part of the healing. And if you're ready to keep walking this journey with us, subscribe to the channel. This space is built for Aries who are done surviving and ready to live with clarity, peace, and self-trust. Trust yourself, Aries. You're not late. You're right on time. And remember, this wasn't the final message. It was the doorway. The journey continues, and the next message is already finding its way to you.